Dumplings. One autumn day, Dolly the ladybird cooked plum dumplings and invited her friends to lunch. Berry came along, and so did Balthazar, Stanley and Flutter. The little ladybird girl put 3 dumplings on each plate. Berry, Dolly and Flutter were soon full.
Plum dumplings. I love them. I could eat 5,
said Balthazar the bee. 5 is nothing. I could eat 7.
7? I could eat 8.
I could eat 10, the little stag beetle announced.
Then let's have a competition,
Balthazar concluded.
Let's see who can eat the most dumplings.
Dolly didn't like the sound of this, and she tried to talk them out of it, but the boys were determined. It'll all end in tears, she warned, but Balthazar and Stanley wouldn't listen. We've already eaten 3 dumplings. Now let's eat the 4th, Stanley suggested, and he plopped another dumpling onto each plate. When they had finished, they put another on their plates and ate a 5th dumpling each. After the 5th, they ate a 6th. After the 6th, they ate a 7th. After the 7th, they ate an 8th. And then a 9th dumpling.
And now for the 10th. Can you keep going?
Balthazar asked. I could eat twice as many, Stanley said with a shrug. The 2 friends ate so many dumplings that their tummies started to hurt more and more. I'll run and get Dr. Owl, shouted Flutter the butterfly. Dr. Owl examined them both and gave them a good telling off. What have you 2 been doing? I'm not surprised that you've got stomachache. They ate 15 each, Berry said as he counted the plum stones on the plates. And so it was a draw after all. It was a very silly thing to do. You'll only be allowed to eat boiled potatoes for 3 days. But the chimney cake man's coming to the forest tomorrow, Stanley complained. I'm very sorry, but there's going to be no chimney cake for you. Come and see me in 3 days and I'll take a look at your tummies again, Dr. Owl said with a scowl, and he flew away home. The very next day, the firebug arrived in the meadow with his delicious chimney cakes. All the forest friends flocked to the stall to sample his tasty wares. I'd like a cinnamon one, Dolly said. And I'd like a coconut one, Berry added. I only want sugar on mine, Flutter shouted. But there were also cakes with walnuts, poppy seeds and chocolate on them. Balthazar and Stanley looked sadly on, but they did as Dr. Owl had told them. On the 3rd day, the little bee and his stag beetle friend went to see Dr. Owl. Now let's take a look at you, said the elderly owl, as he examined them both thoroughly. You appear to be better. I can see that you did as you were told. We did, Stanley said with a sob, but I so wanted to eat a chimney cake. Stanley and Balthazar said goodbye to Dr. Owl and were walking home when the old bird shouted after them. Wait 1 second. I've got something for you here. I saved 2 chimney cakes for you.
You went to the meadow, Dr. Owl?
Of course. I bought chimney cakes for my chicks and I put 2 away for you. You did exactly as I said, and so I thought you deserved a treat. Thank you, the 2 friends said with a smile, and they both threw their arms around Dr. Owl. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? The football match. One morning, Stanley was woken by the sound of someone knocking on his door. Stanley, it's me, Frank. The little stag beetle crawled out of his bed and saw Frank the longhorn beetle. Hello there, Frank. It's super to see you, Stanley said, and the old pals hugged. brought this for you.
A football, hooray!
We'll need teams to play a proper game, Frank reminded him.
Then we'll tell the others to come and we'll have proper teams,
the stag beetle suggested. The two boys called on all the others to come and play football with them. They visited every house, and by the time they had reached the edge of the forest, they had 2 teams. Alfonzo agreed to be the referee. We should sew them football shirts, Rosita suggested. One team can play in blue and one team can play in red. The footballers spent the whole week training. We sewed these for you, Zephyr told them, and she handed the red and blue shirts to Stanley.
Thank you,
the 2 teams said together, and they slipped on their new football shirts. Dolly and Rosita set benches up, and the spectators all sat at the side of the pitch. Alfonzo blew his referee's whistle, and the match began.
That's it, run, Bubble,
Stanley yelled.
Here, pass it to me,
Bubble shouted.
Hooray!
The blue team cheered as they all embraced. Come on, Reds! Come on, Blues! The crowd cheered.
That's not fair, Frank. You can't touch the ball with your hand,
the b-boy complained.
Balthazar's right. Don't do it again, Frank. It's against the rules,
the referee said. The match got very exciting. The Blues were leading 3-2 when the game stopped again.
Frank tripped me up,
Bubble complained.
Yes, I saw that too, Alfonso agreed. I'll have to send you off if you break the rules again, Frank.
Stanley's team looked set to win. Frank started to get crosser and crosser.
I'm going to score a goal now,
he shouted, and he pushed Berry so hard that they ended up falling over and Frank shouted out in pain. Ouch! My arm! The others all ran over.
I'll run and fetch Dr. Owl,
Zephyr announced.
If you hadn't hurt yourself so badly, I'd send you off,
Alfonzo said.
Yes, I know,
Frank said sadly, but my hand really hurts. Dr. Owl was soon at the scene.
Well, you've broken your arm. I'll have to put it in plaster, and you'll have to keep it on for 4 weeks. You'll need to look after it and no running around.
The blue team won the football match.
We'll have to wait a while before we can play again,
Stanley said, and he patted Frank on the back.
Don't be sad. You'll soon be as fit as a fiddle again.
I'm sorry that I broke the rules, Frank sniffed. I promised to play fairly when my arm has mended, and we can have another good game of football. I think we should all decorate Frank's plaster cast, Dolly said with a grin. Let's go back to my house for a snack. The big crowd of friends all piled into Dolly's spotty house. They got her crayons out and drew all kinds of funny things on the longhorn beetle's plaster. I'm going to keep it as a souvenir after Dr. Owl takes it off, Frank told them all. Then all the friends sat around the table and ate every last piece of the delicious sponge roll. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Pebbles. One sunny summer afternoon, Dolly decided to cook a strawberry cake. She asked Stanley the stag beetle and Balthazar the bee to go and collect wild strawberries in the forest. The two boys set off. Balthazar soon spotted a pebble in the middle of the path, and he started to kick it along. But Stanley also liked the look of the pebble, and he tackled it off Balthazar.
That's not fair, Stanley. I found it. I want to kick it down the path.
It's my pebble now. Find another pebble to kick.
But I found it, so it's mine,
Balthazar moaned.
There are loads of pebbles. Find another one,
Stanley said, trying to close the argument. But Balthazar wouldn't leave it at that. He pushed Stanley out of the way so that he could kick the pebble. The two of them continued to push and shove until they both tumbled down the hill into the babbling brook. Alfonzo the cricket came out of his house to see what all the noise was about.
What's going on?
He asked.
It's all Stanley's fault. He took my pebble.
It wasn't your pebble. I was just a better kicker. That's enough of that, Alfonzo interrupted. Come inside, get dry, and then tell me all about what started this silly argument.
The two boys muttered to themselves as they followed the cricket into his little house. They hung their wet clothes out in the hot sun and sat wrapped in towels while they waited for them to dry. Alfonzo gave them both a glass of lemonade and a biscuit. The sun's warm rays soon dried the clothes. Stanley and Balthazar munched sulkily on their biscuits. They told Alfonzo all about what had happened and how they had rolled down the hill into the brook.
I've got a whole collection of pebbles.
Pebbles? Can we have a look?
Balthazar enthused.
Of course,
Alfonzo said with a proud smile, and he placed a large box on the table. Where did you find all these lovely pebbles? Stanley asked.
Down by the brook. You can collect some too if you like.
They filled their baskets with pebbles. They sat sorting them and organising them until it started to get dark. The little stag beetle and the bee boy said goodbye to their cricket friend and started to walk back up the hill. They soon came to Dolly's house. The little ladybird girl shouted angrily out of the window. Where are the strawberries?
Oh dear.
There's strawberries.
We forgot the strawberries.
Dolly, look at the lovely pebbles we collected with Alfonzo.
What am I supposed to do with them? Make pebble cakes? I asked for strawberries.
But we forgot,
Stanley admitted, and he told her the whole long story. Well, I see. Let me have a look at those pebbles, if you didn't bring any strawberries. We should paint something on them. This one looks just like a little house. And this one, I might paint a smiley face on it.
That's a super idea. We can invite the others and spend all day painting pebbles.
Great.
The next morning, Berry the little snail boy arrived at Dolly's house with Flutter the butterfly, Zephyr the dragonfly, Leapy the grasshopper, Eddie the potato beetle and Bubble the baby beetle. Where are Stanley and Balthazar? Berry asked with a disappointed sigh.
Here we are,
the stag beetle and the bee boy announced, and they proudly presented Dolly with a big basket of strawberries. Oh, thank you, the little ladybird girl said, and she mixed the cake while the others got to work painting the pebbles. When they had finished, they invited Alfonzo to come and see their exhibition.
They all look really good. I'll bring my pebbles tomorrow and we can paint them too,
the cricket told his friends. When the strawberry cake was ready, they all sat around the table and ate every last crumb. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Spring Sports Day. Berry, Dolly, Flutter and Balthazar were sitting by the lake, throwing pebbles into the water. Berry hit a floating log a couple of times, and his friends clapped.
Come down to the meadow now. The Spring Sports Day is about to start,
Stanley told them all. Their forest friends had already gathered in the meadow. The little beetles all put their running shorts on and stood in line. They all ran as fast as they could. They had to run 3 times around the meadow.
It's not fair. Eddie cheated. He cut the corner,
Leapy the grasshopper shouted.
There's to be no cheating. Let's start the competition again, but no cheating.
Stanley came first, Leapy came second, and Balthazar came third. Berry finished last. Balthazar and Eddie started whispering.
He's as slow as his snail.
Don't make fun of him. It's not nice, Dolly said angrily.
Now it's time for the high jump. The one who can pick the highest apple is the winner,
Alfonzo said. The friends took a run and tried to jump as high as possible. Leapy got the highest apple, Flutter got the second one, and Eddie the potato beetle grabbed the third apple. No matter how hard Berry tried, he couldn't even reach the lowest apple. I can't do it. I just can't do it, he sulked. Come on, Berry. You'll be better at the next race. Don't be sad, Rosita said. But Berry was too nervous to join the rolling race because he was frightened he'd crack his shell. The others all lined up and rolled from one end of the meadow to the other. Dolly was the fastest and she won.
Now let's start flying, Alfonzo said. The fastest to fly to the top of this tree and get a pine cone from there is the winner.
The beetles started immediately. Flutter, Balthazar, Dolly and Zephyr all joined the race. Flutter was the fastest and got to the top of the tree first. I can't fly either, Berry snivelled. Don't be so angry, Berry. It's time for the skipping competition now. The fastest skipper wins. The 4 contestants started skipping. But suddenly, Berry got tangled in the rope and hurt himself. The others were worried and ran over to him. I'm not doing any more silly races. I can't do anything. I'm going home. We have to think of something. We have to cheer Berry up, Dolly said. You're right. What's he really good at? Rosita asked. I know, Flutter shouted. Throwing!
That's a super idea,
Balthazar agreed.
Berry was the only one who could hit the log in the lake.
They made 5 piles. The first one was made out of apples, the second of horse chestnuts, the third of pine cones, the fourth out of hazelnuts, and the 5th one out of pears. Dolly convinced Berry to come back to the meadow. It's time for the throwing competition. Do you want to join in? Rosita asked. Hooray! Throwing? Of course I'm in. Everybody had a go, but Berry was the best. He was the only one who managed to knock over all 5 piles.
You see, Berry, I'm the best runner. Leapy's the best high jumper. Flutter's the best at flying. Dolly at rolling. Rosita can skip the fastest. And you're the best thrower. Everybody's good at something,
Stanley explained. Berry got a beautiful shiny chestnut engraved by Alfonzo, which said, throwing, first place. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Easter eggs. Easter had arrived at last. Flutter the butterfly girl, Rosita the rose beetle, Leapy the grasshopper girl and Zephyr the dragonfly all gathered together at Dolly's house to paint eggs for Easter. How many eggs do we have to paint? Rosita asked. Now let's see, Berry is certain to come and visit tomorrow, but so is Balthazar, Stanley, Eddie, Bubble, Alfonzo and Sam Snail. That means we need to paint 7 eggs each. We better get started. Oh, they look so pretty. I'm sure that the boys will love them, Flutter told the others. It's time to go home. I've got to get up early tomorrow to make pancakes for the boys, Flutter said. I'm going to bake scones, Rosita said. And I'm going to make an apple strudel, Dolly added. All the girls got up bright and early the next morning. Flutter hurried into the kitchen, put on her apron and mixed up a big batch of pancake batter. Rosita popped her apron on and started to knead her scone dough. Dolly rolled her pastry out and Zephyr made a sponge roll. Leapy woke up feeling quite excited.
Boys never get up early. I've still got plenty of time to bake an apple pie.
And she put a big basket of apples on the table. Oh dear. The basket of apples tipped over and knocked her pretty painted Easter eggs onto the floor. They were all ruined.
Oh, my eggs! Now what am I going to do? What will I give to my visitors?
The little grasshopper girl sobbed as she ran to Dolly's house.
Dolly, I've smashed all 7 of my eggs! Help me!
I haven't got time, Leapy. I'm busy baking. But I've still got 2 unpainted eggs. If you paint them quickly, they'll be dry by the time the boys come.
Rosita! All my eggs got smashed. Can you help?
I'm too busy baking, but you can have these 3 white eggs. You've still got time to paint them if you hurry.
Flutter! Help! I've got to paint my eggs all over again. The first lot got broken.
All of them? I am sorry, but I can't help now. My pancakes will burn. You can have these 2 unpainted eggs I've got left over.
Something terrible has happened, Zephyr. I've broken all the eggs I painted yesterday. Please help me, because I haven't got time to paint another 7 eggs.
Leapy complained to her dragonfly friend. I know who can help you. Come with me. The 2 friends ran through the forest all the way to a cave. The spider stumbled sleepily from his home. Oh, can you help us, Spider? Zephyr asked. Leapy's eggs all got broken. And now she has to paint new ones and there's not much time left. The boys will be coming to visit her soon.
If I have to,
the spider grumbled.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Leapy got out all her paints and brushes and the 2 of them started to paint the eggs. The spider could paint 3 eggs at once.
We're ready,
Leapy said with a happy laugh. And then she thanked the spider for his help and she arranged the pretty eggs in a dish. There soon came a knock at Leapy's front door. She opened the door and was greeted by all 7 boys at once. Happy Easter, Leapy! They had all come to see Leapy, who offered them a dish, and they all chose a pretty Easter egg.
I haven't got any cakes to offer you, I'm afraid,
Leapy said in a whisper, and then she told them all about what had happened. Don't worry about that, the boys laughed. We ate strudel at Dolly's house, scones at Rosita's house, pancakes at Flutter's house, and sponge roll at Zephyr's house. Our tummies are full. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Christmas. It was a crisp winter day and Berry the snail and Dolly the ladybird went into the woods to look for a bunch of Christmas greenery. Look, Berry, this little tree got knocked over in the storm. Let's take it home. We can decorate it for Christmas. Hooray! We'll have a real Christmas tree, Berry shouted. They lifted the tree up and saw a centipede sheltering under its branches. Help me, Berry. Let's put him on the sledge. He's hurt himself and looks very cold. We can take him to my house. They lifted the centipede carefully onto the sledge. Will he be all right? Berry worried. Of course he will, Dolly reassured her friend. When they got home, they put the poorly centipede to bed. Dolly made him hot tea and Berry read him caterpillar stories from a storybook. Next morning, the centipede opened his eyes and smiled a little smile. He got better every day and soon he was healthy again. Dolly asked him to stay. You're so nice. Don't go, centipede. Spend Christmas with us.
Well, thank you. I'd love to stay.
But what should we get him for Christmas? Dolly wondered. What would make a centipede happy? Dolly told him her idea. The little snail nodded excitedly. Berry and Dolly went to see the ants. The queen ant welcomed them with open arms. Dolly told them what kind of present she'd thought of. "We can make anything you want," said the queen. Christmas came and Berry and Dolly made a tree stand. As night fell, Berry gave Dolly her present. "Merry Christmas, Dolly." "Thank you, Berry," the ladybird said. She was delighted. "It's beautiful." Dolly was very happy and wound the pretty ribbon around the tree. "Merry Christmas to you too," Dolly said, and handed Berry his present. "Sparklers, super! Let's put them on the tree." They lit the sparklers and crackling sparks danced around the Christmas tree. The glittering light attracted lots of tiny fireflies, and each brought a Christmas decoration. Even the centipede helped to trim the tree. Soon the ants arrived carrying a parcel. They handed it to Berry and Dolly. "This is our present to you, centipede," Berry said to him. "Merry Christmas." "Boots!" he shouted happily. "They'll keep your little feet warm when you're walking in the snow," Dolly explained. The friends' celebrations went on late into the night. There was Eddie the potato beetle, Stanley the stag beetle, Alfonzo the cricket, and Rosita the rose beetle. The fireflies built a big snowman with the little ants. They all sang and danced around the Christmas tree. Flutter the butterfly came to celebrate with them. Zephyr the dragonfly danced with Leapy the grasshopper. Berry and Dolly skipped around with Balthazar the bee. When the party was over, the centipede cleaned his boots and put them on a shelf. "What a wonderful day I've had. It's a shame that Christmas only comes once a year." Berry and Dolly say, "What will we learn today?" The Sandcastle. On a sunny summer day, Berry, Dolly, Bubble and Balthazar put on their swimming costumes, grabbed their buckets and spades, and set out for Sand Island to build castles.
Look at this huge watermelon,
Balthazar said in surprise. "Oh, let's take it with us. Then we can all have a feast at the end of the day." "Okay, Berry, we'll take it." Berry, Dolly, Balthazar and Bubble carefully rolled the watermelon in front of them. But when the friends got to the top of the hill, the round watermelon started to roll away down the slope. "Stop it!" Dolly shouted to the others. Bubble pounced on the watermelon, but he couldn't stop it. The baby beetle slipped off and bumped his head. The juicy watermelon just carried on rolling. They all ran after it as fast as they could, but the watermelon was much faster than all of them. Then a terrible thing happened. The watermelon got to the bottom of the hill and smashed into a sharp rock. "Our lovely watermelon smashed into pieces."
Oh, the watermelon!
Balthazar was very sad too. "Why are you all complaining? Let's eat it instead," the baby beetle suggested. So the four friends sat down and started to munch on the watermelon. They ate the sweet red fruit until their tummies were full. We'd better hurry to Sand Island, or there'll be no time left to build sandcastles.
Dolly, wait for me. I'll fly with you.
Balthazar said. Me too, Bubble added. But I can't fly. Are you three going to leave me here? Berry asked with a sad sob.
Let's build boats out of the watermelon rind. This way Berry can sail to the island with us,
Balthazar suggested. They selected 4 strong pieces of melon rind. 1 for Dolly, 1 for Berry, 1 for Balthazar and 1 for Bubble. They made the masts out of strong branches and the sails out of large leaves. When they were done, they launched the little boats on the water, and the wind quickly carried them away to Sand Island. Hooray! We're sailing, Berry said with an excited squeak. They all got to Sand Island with plenty of time left to play.
Look, someone's coming, and he's got a bucket in his hand.
Indeed, there was a cheerful beetle walking towards them on the sandy shore. Who are you? Dolly asked. I'm Sean, the sand beetle. I live here and was about to build a sandcastle.
Really?
Balthazar asked.
Can we join you?
Of course you can. Let's all build together, Sean said with joy. The 5 of them built a grand sandcastle with all kinds of tunnels, towers and bridges. Now all it needs is a flag on top, Dolly said. So she drew a picture of Sean on a leaf and stuck it in the very top of the castle. That looks super! Does that mean it's my sandcastle now? Sean said enthusiastically. When the sun went in, Dolly and her friends said goodbye to Sean and headed home. Good night, King of the Castle, Dolly shouted, waving goodbye to their new friend. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Bubble's Tower. It was a lovely summer afternoon and Bubble the baby beetle decided to play with his colourful building blocks. I'm going to build a tall tower with my blocks, he thought to himself and carried them to a hill nearby. He tipped the bright blocks out of their box in the shade of a big oak tree. As the tower grew, it was harder and harder for Bubble to reach the top. He had to stand on tiptoe and was just reaching for the top when his hand slipped and the tower tumbled to the ground. Oh no, Bubble complained. Now I have to start all over again. So the baby beetle started again from the beginning. The tower soon began to grow and was very tall indeed. But oh dear, an acorn from the oak tree knocked the baby beetle's tower down. My lovely tower! My tower's ruined again! It was the silly oak tree's fault, he said out loud. So little Bubble started again, but this time he moved out from under the old oak tree. He was stacking the blocks on top of each other when his friends Berry the snail, Dolly the ladybug and Stanley the stag beetle came walking over. Wow, you've built a beautiful tower, Bubble, they all said. Yes, it's nearly finished. All I have to do is put the red triangle on the very top. But then the wind blew and toppled his tall tower. Bubble got very angry. I don't believe it. I don't want to build towers anymore. I'm going home. His friends ran after him. Bubble, wait! Why don't we rebuild your tower together? No, I don't want to build towers anymore. You can't build a really high tower with this many blocks anyway, grumbled. He went into his house and slammed the door shut. How can we help Bubble? Dolly puzzled.
We've got to think of a way to cheer him up somehow.
I know what we can do, Stanley said. I've got another set of building blocks at home. I'll go and fetch them so we can build a really high tower together.
That's a super idea. I've a box full of building blocks too.
And I'll bring mine. We'll build the tallest tower ever.
Berry pulled his blocks in a little trailer. Dolly pushed hers in a wheelbarrow, and Stanley carried his in a big basket. Hello, Bubble. Look, we brought our building blocks. Why don't we build a big tower together? Dolly asked nicely.
We could build it in your house so that the wind won't knock it down again, Berry added. Goodness me! Look at all those building blocks. We'll be able to build a very big tower with them,
the baby beetle said with a smile. And now it's time to pop the red triangle on the top. You should put it on, Bubble, Stanley suggested. Hooray! It's finished! They all shouted together. Then Berry, Dolly and Stanley said goodnight to Bubble. The baby beetle went to bed very happy that night. He stared at the tower until he fell fast asleep. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? The scooter. One spring morning, Morris the Maybug decided to make himself a scooter. He spent the whole day sawing, drilling and hammering. And when he was finished, he painted the scooter black. Then he hurried to show his super scooter to his friends. The boys were all playing basketball in the meadow. Berry, Stanley, Balthazar, Eddie, Bubble and Alfonso. Look at my new scooter. I made it all myself.
Can I have a try?
No one can borrow it. It's mine.
I only want to try it for a minute.
We'd like to have a go on it too, then we'll give it back.
I'm not lending it to anyone, Morris told them again. The boys were so busy arguing that they didn't spot Eddie, who grabbed the scooter and rode off on it. Stop! Bring it back! It's my scooter and I didn't lend it to you. I'm not lending it to anyone. Eddie slowed down and Morris soon caught up with him. Give me my scooter back.
Here you are. It doesn't go fast enough anyway.
Not fast enough? Look at this. Not fast enough? You can hardly keep up with me, he shouted with a laugh, but he didn't see a big pothole in the middle of the road.
Watch out, Morris!
Balthazar, Berry and Stanley all shouted at once, but it was too late.
Well, you've only got yourself to blame, Morris,
Balthazar said in a snooty tone. What happened, Morris? Are you badly scratched? Why aren't you boys helping him? The rose beetle asked the others.
It's all Morris's fault.
It doesn't matter how it happened. He's really hurt himself and you should have helped. Come back to my house, Morris, and I'll clean those nasty scratches for you. Rosita sat Morris down and washed his wounds with a warm, wet cloth. It doesn't look that bad now. Morris started to sob. It was all my fault because I was mean to the others. If I hadn't been so mean, it wouldn't have happened. Then don't be mean next time. Thank you for all your help, Morris said as he left. It was nothing. You'll feel better soon. Morris limped all the way back to his house. The minute he got home, he jumped into bed and he was soon fast asleep. The little Maybug woke up the next morning with a wonderful idea. He got out his paints and brushes. I'm going to paint you pink. Look at you. I've brought this for you. Thank you for helping me yesterday. It looks lovely. Did you paint it? Rosita asked. Yes, I thought you wouldn't like it black. I love it. I'm going to ride it over to Dolly's house. Be careful. Have a safe ride. Morris walked home and he was about to eat his lunch when he heard a knock at the door.
Hello, Morris.
Balthazar said first.
We came to see if you were feeling better.
Much better, thank you, Morris shrugged. I promise that I won't take your scooter again, Eddie said with an apologetic smile. I haven't got it anymore. I painted it pink and gave it to Rosita. But I can make a new scooter, Morris said. I promised Rosita that I won't be mean again. Everyone can have a go on my new scooter when it's finished.
Hooray!
Bubble shouted. Now would you all like a piece of apple pie? I baked it myself. Morris soon finished the new scooter. He painted it dark green. All the friends gathered in the meadow the next day and took turns to have a go on the two scooters. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Alfonso's Fiddle. One autumn day, Alfonso the cricket stood happily playing his fiddle in the mushroom field. The forest friends were all enjoying the lovely music. The little ants were playing football on the hill. But oh dear, the ball bounced away and knocked the fiddle clean out of Alfonso's hands. Alfonso shouted in horror. My fiddle! My fiddle's broken! And then he burst into tears. He was sobbing so loudly that everyone came to see what the fuss was all about. Alfonso pointed angrily at the spotty ball. That ball is to blame, and those naughty ants. Where am I going to get a fiddle from now? He picked his broken fiddle up, went into his house and slammed the door shut behind him. Alfonso, come out. I'm sure we can help you, Berry pleaded. But Alfonso didn't want to see anybody. His friends sat sadly in the mushroom field and didn't know what to do. Then Dolly had an idea. I know. Let's make Alfonso a new fiddle. Yes, let's make a new fiddle, Flutter the butterfly nodded. I know who can help us. We have to find Charlie the click beetle. He made Alfonso's first fiddle. The band of friends set off and walked until they reached a blue house. They knocked on the door. A tiny, timid beetle popped his head out. He wore a blue hat and had beautiful dark blue wings. Who are you? He asked. Dolly told Charlie the whole story.
Oh, don't be sad. If that's your problem, I'm happy to help. Alfonso will be playing music on his new fiddle in no time at all.
The click beetle gave everybody a job to do. Some collected wood for the body of the fiddle, while others gathered grass for the strings. Now he had everything he needed. Charlie got to work. He sawed, sanded, polished and waxed. And then, like a little miracle, the new fiddle was ready. Can I try it? Dolly asked. No, it's Alfonso's instrument, Flutter told her. But I want to have my own musical instrument, Dolly sulked.
Me too,
the little ants shouted.
Quiet,
said Charlie.
Why don't you all start an orchestra? A great big orchestra. Like a music band? And everybody could have their own instrument? That's a very good idea.
The first thing they made was a harp for Dolly. Stanley the stag beetle got a double bass, and Eddie the potato beetle had a cello. Berry made a trumpet out of a lily. Morris the maybug made a horn from a honeysuckle flower. The big spider used horse chestnuts and acorns for drums, whilst Zephyr and Leapy made cymbals out of pebbles. Charlie carved flutes from birch twigs for the ants. Flutter the butterfly got a lute, and Balthazar the bee got a zither. Bubble the baby beetle played a triangle. They all had a quick practice and then headed for Alfonso's house. Alfonso heard the music and looked out of his window to see where it was coming from. He was surprised by what he saw.
Please, Alfonso,
The little ant began.
don't be mad at us for breaking your fiddle. We'd like you to have this new one as a present. Charlie made it.
Alfonso began to play straight away, and the sound of his fiddle filled the forest once more. Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today? Kindergarten. One autumn morning, Dolly knocked excitedly on Berry's door.
Come quickly, Berry, or we'll be late.
Berry got ready and the two friends held hands and walked to the nursery together. Lots of little children were gathered in the playground. They were all so happy to see each other. There was Balthazar the bee, Flutter the butterfly, Stanley the stag beetle, Eddie the potato beetle, Zephyr the dragonfly, Alfonzo the cricket, Leapy the grasshopper, and Bubble the baby beetle. Mrs. Bumblebee patiently guided everybody into their classrooms. The little, middle and top children went into different rooms. Bubble was in the little group. He waved to Berry and Dolly from the doorway. The day started with exercises. After breakfast, the children made beautiful pictures using the leaves they collected in the woods. When everybody had finished, Mrs. Bumblebee gathered the children in a circle. She taught them lots of songs and games. The children all danced around. Then it was playtime. Mrs. Bumblebee sat in a rocking chair and watched the children. Berry and the boys ran straight over to the car box and started playing cars. They built ramps and tunnels.
Can I join in, boys?
Dolly asked. She was holding a broken red car.
Oh no, Dolly. You can't play cars with that old thing,
Berry told her.
And anyway, cars are for boys, not girls.
That made Dolly cry.
The boys don't want to play with me,
she told Flutter. Flutter, Leapy and Zephyr quickly cheered her up.
Come and play with us. We're playing with dolls.
The girls dressed their dolls in pretty dresses, fed them and rocked them to sleep. Dolly liked this game a lot. Then Berry got into an argument with Morris the maybug.
You keep knocking my car over. It's not fair. You're a cheat. That's not true. You're a cheat,
replied Morris.
That's it. I'm not playing with you anymore,
Berry said sulkily and left the boys.
Can I join in your game?
Berry asked his friend Dolly.
You can't play with us. It's a girls' game,
Dolly sulked.
But I brought this doll with me. It's got curly hair. I want to play with you. All right. Come and play with us. But now you have to let me play cars with you.
Children, time to wash your hands, Mrs. Bumblebee shouted. Then go and sit down at the tables.
Mrs. Earwig, the dinner lady, dished up their dinner. When everybody had finished eating, Berry and Dolly collected up all the plates and glasses. Then the children had a little lie down while Mrs. Bumblebee read them a story. They all listened in silence, and a few of them fell fast asleep. When they got up, they all had a snack and went out into the playground. It was enormous and filled with all kinds of slides, climbing frames and swings, with a big wooden train in the middle. Berry and Morris quickly made friends again and played on the swings together. Dolly helped Bubble up the slide and caught him at the bottom. Bubble liked that a lot. The rest of the day flew by, and soon the children were waving goodbye to each other. They couldn't wait for tomorrow to come.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The hot air balloon. One summer afternoon, a storm blew up in the forest. Dolly the ladybird and Berry the snail sat watching it from the spotty house. The wild wind twisted the trees and blew the roofs off houses. The rain came down in buckets. When the rain and wind finally stopped, the two friends took a look around the forest.
Look, Dolly, the wind blew this tree over, Berry said.
And the rain washed away my flowers, Dolly sighed. Leapy the grasshopper came rushing in.
Dolly, Berry, come quickly. Someone's lying in the meadow.
The friends found an oil beetle lying in the meadow. Oh, what happened to you? What's your name? Who are you? I'm Adette the oil beetle. I live up in the mountains, but the wind blew me down here and I hit my head really hard. My wings are weak and I can't fly. I don't know how I'm going to get home. The oil beetle sniffled. They lifted Adette up and carried her into Leapy's house. Don't worry, Dolly said eventually. We'll help you get home. That afternoon, Balthazar the bee, Flutter the butterfly and Stanley the stag beetle all came to see Adette. They tried to think of ways to help her get home.
The best thing would be a hot air balloon,
Stanley said.
But what could we use to make a balloon?
Berry asked. We could use blankets, pillows and sheets, Flutter suggested.
And curtains and towels too,
Stanley added. They got to work immediately. They stitched all the blankets, curtains, sheets and towels together. It took a while to get everything finished, but Adette helped as much as she could. Every day she was feeling stronger, and even her head had stopped hurting.
It's ready,
said Stanley.
Thank you,
the oil beetle replied happily.
Hooray! We're flying!
Berry exclaimed. Wow, it's beautiful! We can see the whole forest from here, Dolly laughed. It started to get dark. When they eventually arrived, Adette cried out, Hooray! I'm home! Thank you. Please stay the night and watch the shooting stars with me.
We'd love to,
the little friends said. Adette quickly made them something to eat and gave them delicious cakes and tea.
After dinner, they all sat down in front of Odette's house and waited for shooting stars to appear in the night sky. Hooray! I saw a shooting star! Berry exclaimed excitedly. Me too, Dolly said. And me, added Stanley. They went into Odette's house when it got colder and sat and watched the stars through the window. They all made a wish and fell fast asleep. As she slowly drifted to sleep, Odette wished that someday she would meet her new friends again.
Berry and Dolly say, what will we learn today?
The Little Bumblebee. Early one morning, Berry, Dolly and Balthazar went out to play in the meadow. They wanted to try out the new parachute the little bee had made. But a little bumblebee was picking lilac flowers and singing a happy song.
The winter's gone and it's the spring. Lilac is my favourite thing.
Balthazar was the first to greet her.
Hello, little bumblebee. My name's Balthazar. This is Berry the snail and Dolly the ladybird. Who are you? My name's Betty. I was flying home and I decided to stop and pick lilac flowers in the meadow. We're on our way to try this new parachute. Do you want to come with us?
Balthazar asked.
I'd love to.
Balthazar and Betty were the first to jump, and then the other friends tried the colourful parachute. They played until it got dark.
Will you play with us again tomorrow?
Balthazar asked excitedly.
I can't. I have to leave early tomorrow morning. My home is far away from here, and I still have a long way to go.
So Berry, Dolly and Balthazar said goodbye to Betty. Balthazar looked very upset, so Dolly asked him,
What's wrong?
Balthazar's got a girlfriend, Berry laughed.
Don't make fun of him, Berry, Dolly said angrily. You know what, Balthazar? Ask Betty to stay here. We can build her a house in the woods. That's a super idea. I'll go to the meadow tomorrow morning and ask her to stay.
Balthazar, Dolly and Berry got up very early the next day. They hurried to the meadow to talk to Betty. But the friends were too late. The little bumblebee had already left. The only thing they found was a farewell note she'd left for them pinned to a tree. Balthazar sat down on the grass and started to cry. Berry didn't laugh at him this time.
Let's go after her, the little snail said. I'm sure we can catch her up. Berry, you're such a slow snail. We'll never catch up with Betty if you don't hurry up.
Berry was going to say something back to Balthazar when a hedgehog stepped out of the bushes. Perhaps I can help. I'm not too fast, but I'm sure I'm much faster than you three. The friends liked the idea. They built a little cart out of a horse chestnut shell and tied it to the hedgehog's spikes. The hedgehog cart was ready to roll.
Let's rest a little while,
Dolly suggested when it got dark.
We'll carry on tomorrow morning.
Balthazar started to cry again.
We'll never find her. I can smell something sweet. It's lilac blossom. Lilac?
Dolly wondered.
But there aren't any lilac bushes around here. Let's look around. Would you like to come back and live with us? We could build you a little bumblebee house in a tree. You wouldn't have to fly back to your faraway home. We'd be so happy if you lived with us. That's a super idea. We'd all be very happy.
Berry and Dolly nodded.
Thank you. I'd love to come and live with you,
Betty replied. She was happy.
You came all this way to find me. That's so nice of you.
They all jumped into the hedgehog cart and trundled back to the meadow. They started to build the house the very next morning. They built Betty a pretty treehouse near the lilac field. When the bumblebee's house was ready, they had a big party. All the forest friends were invited. They danced and ate late into the night and made their new neighbour very welcome indeed.